welcome to TSO Daily. I am your host, Mr. Graven. Alright guys, so it's a couple players asked me about rotation. And this is a very, very, very good subject to touch up on, because even the most skilled gamers will have trouble in rotation. Alright, so I don't want anybody to think there's, like the prime way, because everybody will make mistakes. But there are a couple of tricks that pretty much all the top end players, keep to. And in this video, I just kind of want to do a tutorial for the players beginning to understand their class, but let alone trying to come up with proper rotation and technique. So in this video, I'm not worried about parses, whatever. I never worry about it anyways, as far as target dummies, because they're dummies. But what I want to do is help the players who want to understand how to increase their damage. And in this video, I will try to cover all of that as much as possible, do slight combo workups, and how you can incrementally increase your DPS. Okay, so I'm going to apply my food buff, and we're going to go first into the bar. Now, this is a Nightblade. Now, I'm going to cover the general concept of stamina players. Now, each will differ depending on their class, so keep that in mind, guys. But it's kind of an important thing to understand. If I'm on bow, well, obviously, I have to slot bow abilities. If I'm on dual wield, well, that's the only place I can use dual wield abilities. But class abilities or other abilities are open to slot anywhere. For example, Fighter's Guild. Fighter's Guild abilities can be slotted on either side of the bar, no matter what type of weapon I'm using. So Flawless Dawnbreaker could go on my front bar, back bar, or both. So I can use that to my advantage. Also, keep in mind, I have Resolving Vigor on here. I'm going to remove that. Keep in mind, also, we have other class-based abilities like buffs, for example, like over here, which is a class-based ability that will also give me a damaging effect and a buff. Now, in most MMOs, this is what we refer to as a builder, right? Because it builds up momentum and increases, it gives you a buff and increases the damage out. It has a secondary effect, hence why it's called builder. A standard buff is an applied buff without any damaging effects. In most MMOs, except players in this game, they think it's a made-up thing. Whatever. I don't care. Moving on. Anyway, so class-based abilities can be slotted, once again, on any side of the bar, but weapon abilities have to be slotted. Now, I'm using a Rearming Trap, and for stamina users, this is a really nice buff or slash builder, because what it does, it has a damaging effect and it applies the minor force. But keep in mind, what we always want to take a look at is duration, right? How long is duration for any of our abilities? Because what we do is we're layering all of the effects between the durations. Okay, so the longer the duration, the less we have to keep reapplying the effect, thus increasing our damage. Now, it has a 60-second duration with a 1.5 second to arm. After that, it will trigger, it will apply a damaging effect, and thus also granting us the buff with the minor force. All right, so that we can go ahead and always use as an opener, along with another builder, which will give us the Major Brutality. For stamina users, Major Brutality is a necessity in a lot of your opening effects, because it increases all of your other abilities by 20%. Right? Then we have what we call AoE effects, or AoE layering. Excuse me, I have a cold. So I'm going to go ahead and put Killer Blade Bat on here, because that's what I typically have here. So the one thing I want to go ahead and do is show you guys how to effectively layer your AoE effects. Okay, so the first thing I always want to go ahead and do is lay the Rearming Trap, Endless Hail. Okay, that's two effects being applied, right? And you'll see it'll re-trigger, and I don't have to, and then as soon as this starts dropping off, I can reapply it. Okay? Now, another effect I want to go ahead and do is add another AoE effect. Now, this is part of our bar swap. So I want to keep it simple. I'm not going to go ahead and make it, too crazy. So the first thing I want to go ahead and do, once again, lay the Rearming Trap, lend the Endless Hail, and then hit this. Okay? That's 3 abilities. Okay, we're going to go back into it. Except this time, I'm also going to go ahead and what we call a clip or a light attack on drop. So I'm going to go ahead, drop, light attack, drop, and spin. What the light attack does is it's going to go ahead and give me the buff. So in between my rotation. You can also animation cancellation between your spins. So if I go here, you'll see me do a light attack between my spin. It's animation cancellation. I want to hit my trigger or my mouse button as I'm hitting the ability. Okay. So same thing. We're going to go ahead, drop, hit, light attack, and spin. Okay, this is an AoE rotation. Now, what I want to do also is now add the builder. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to drop, hit, builder, spin, and weave. Okay. If I didn't use the builder, my spin is only dealing 8/6. This applied and spin. Okay, didn't drop off. We'll give it a minute to drop off. Okay. 8/7. So I'm getting a bump by applying the major brutality. So it's important. Same thing. So AoE rotation, simple. I want to go ahead, rearming trap, drop, throw, and spin, and weave between. And that's how you get through your general mobs. Single target. Okay, single target's a little, lot more complicated, but basically now I want to add a secondary buff. So what I want to do is add, I forgot, I want to add the Relentless Focus, this, drop it, buff, and throw. Okay, now what I always suggest to people when they're first trying this out, start slow. Don't add the most complicated things. Go, like I said, just go with this, hit this, and then do your spin and work on your animation cancellation. And as you're doing that, then start applying the other buffs, like the brutality, the relentless focus. Okay, and that'll help increase your AoE effects and derated effects. Now, I want to go ahead and get into single target heavy and attack weaves and when to throw in your heavy attack. So, derated effects, right? It's very important. We know Whirling Blades is a spammable, but on a single target, I'm only going to go ahead and apply this once every so often between my rotation. The reason being it continues to give me the major endurance, increasing my stamina recovery. But I'm going to need to do a heavy attack in between my spammable. That allows me to maintain a lot more. So between my Endless Hail, I want to go ahead and spam up. So we're just going to do nothing. We're not going to add the poison injector or any of the buffs. We're just going to work it slow. So once again, I'm going to throw the rearming trap. I'm going to throw this. I'm going to throw up the builder. And I'm going to start my spam. and heavy and attack. Spam, heavy and attack. Spam, heavy and attack. Up. Once that drops off, reapply. Heavy and attack. And once you get used to like doing the heavy attack between, then depending on your stamina, you might be able to spam 1 or 2, heavy and attack, 1 or 2, spam. Excuse me. Once again, I have a cold. It's really bad today. Anyway, so that's what I want to do. And then I can add the other buffs. So now I go ahead and add this, drop the trap, endless hail, brutality, heavy and attack, start spamming. Heavy and attack, spam, heavy and attack, spam, reapply. Okay, so that is how you kind of want to work it. Start working your, and keeping a good look at the icons in front of you. You know, ZeniMax gave us the icons. So what I use these as indicators for my durations. So when I go ahead, I'll let everything drop off. And I'm just going to use Endless Hail for an example of what's on my HUD or my heads-up display. All right, so when I go ahead and hit this, you're going to see an icon with a timer on a tick. Okay, see it? It's got 19 seconds. 18. So it, you know, it'll drop down. Your timers will just start dropping, except this timer's a little weird. But for your buff, there you go. So when I go ahead and apply any buffs, these are giving me indications for whatever. For Major Brutality example, throw it. Now I got 18 seconds for Major Brutality, that little blue icon right there. That's letting me know that I have a 20-second window. Drop. Finer Force. Same thing. It's going to throw up the icon. Get that spin in. So I always tell people, start playing around with your layering effects. I always go off small. Start off with the Rearming Trap opener. Drop. Hit. Sometimes, if you think you get it, that's where your mess up is. Don't beat yourself up about it, guys. It's not worth it. Alright? You can play around with it. Don't... As long as you're getting the principle of layering your durations and knowing what your spammable is, and then going ahead and doing your heavy attacks properly in between your rotation, you sustain a lot better and you can get everything down a lot faster. Excuse me. Don't worry about what the damage output is. On the right side, don't try to focus on that when you're trying to learn your rotation. What your parse, I can't even call it a parse, to be honest with you. What the target skeleton is designed for is to help you with rotation. When the numbers start increasing, it's letting you know you're getting your rotation down in a smoother format, right, guys? It's not an accurate description of what's going to occur in a dungeon, because this will never move. It will never move, but it helps you. It helps you practice your rotation and how to get all of these effects to occur. That's the most important thing that the target skeletons are always going to offer you, and that's why I use them if I'm learning a new rotation. So I'm always going to tell people, when you're learning things, So keep in mind, single target and AoE is going to be different, but AoE rotation is going to be applied in your single target. Because I'm still going to use Endless Hail on the boss, right? I'm still going to use the Rearming Trap. I'm still going to throw my buffs. I'm still going to use this every once in a while for my major endurance. So this all becomes relative, guys. All right. And just play with it, man. Excuse me. The more you play with it, the better you're going to become. And you're just going to get a lot more fluent at it. But layering is something that's been in MMOs for years. Right, guys? We all know, majority of us know what a layering is. In fact, how we used to write macros is through our durated effects and how we layer. So we'd always just go ahead, drop, put in dots, you know, and layer up. And all of these, you can start seeing all your damage ticks, right? That's a layering. Those are layering effects. Those are multiple effects being applied to increase your damage. So that's what you're trying to do. So then on this game, we're more Twitch based. So every other thing was turn. But so it can be a lot difficult because you don't have a global cooldown. So you can't go by the rule of thumb of this has this global cooldown where I can't use the ability. You can always reapply. I can always spam Endless Hail, but it's not going to do any good. It's just costing me stamina. It's just being reapplied. It's just costing me stamina. It's wasteful. So getting one application in, right, knowing that's the Rearming Trap's my longest duration, and then spamming up on mobs with the animation cancellation is going to be the most productive for AoE. Single target, once again, if you're having a problem with weave, just work something simple. Just go ahead with the the flying daggers and do your heavy end attacks. Reapply, spam, heavy attack. And then you can just go from there. Once you feel like you have that down, then add your duration. I can add this, throw. And then that's how you do it. So I always tell people on single target, work your way up to it. You know, go ahead and do something simple like add the cloak, add the jabs, heavy end attack, then swap, and then try to go ahead and then add your effects. One of the major things you always want to try to do, though, when you get accustomed to it, is get your Rearming Trap down first or in between your rotation. It has an icon on it. It has a light. So that's a visual display of the effect being applied. When it starts dimming, it reloads, right? So that's the nice thing about the Rearming Trap. Rearming Trap, I throw it down, it triggers, lights up. When it starts diminishing and the light starts fading, it will proc it again. There you go. Proc. So that gives me the indication it's on its second phase. I have 30 seconds applied. Another 30 seconds applied. So once I see that second phase and I start seeing that light dim, I can reapply it. So I can go ahead, hit, apply. Let it do its thing throughout my rotation. And then all of a sudden when it starts dimming, it'll reapply. When it dims again, I can go ahead and throw the other one knowing I have 1.5 seconds. And it then stays up. So I'm going to go ahead and dim, re-trigger, start waiting for that light to start flickering down, reapply. And it won't drop off. Okay? Visual display is very, very, key. Same thing with now your arrows. You'll see the same kind of a visual display, right? The arrows will start getting, they'll be really heavy in the beginning, and they'll start dwindling in the visual. See, start getting a little lighter. Drop it again. Getting a little lighter. Drop it again. Getting a little lighter. Drop it again. That allows you to keep your duration up even if you're not keeping in. A visual display will go a long way throughout your rotation. So, same thing with buffs. When I use the Relentless Focus, my weapons have a color coat to them, right? You'll see like a little red color. Along with my buff icon. Down there, it's 18, 17, 16. Alright, so it's a visual indication. Alright, same thing with the buff, the builder. Throw it. I got my icon. But you see how it's turning red? The target has a HUD to it. It has a color effect to it when it's applied. When it drops off, it goes away. Alright. So I can go ahead, apply. Hit it. Hit the poison. I want to get to the finishing phase. Usually apply the buff. Follow up heavy. That's how I usually do it, because I just like to keep, I like to do it. A lot of people like to spam. I don't. I'm losing DPS that way on my execution. So I always like to keep my buff up, apply, heavy attack, execute. Heavy attack, execute. Heavy attack, execute. Alright. That's how I like to do my finishing rotation. So my finishing rotation is different because I'm not having to use my spammable. I'm using my executability. If you have an executability, does that mean it's the only thing that I'm going to go ahead and use? Well, if I want to lose DPS, yes. But if I want to go ahead and maintain my DPS, I want to keep my Rearming Trap up. I want to keep my buffs up. I want to keep my builder up. I want to go ahead and weave in so I can get that boost to my enchantment. So I want to keep focused on that. I want to make sure that's something that I'm going to keep reapplying, right, throughout my finisher rotation. So that's slightly different. It's an ability that just stands there until needed. So pretty much, guys, that's about it. These are some of the tricks I'm just going to go ahead and do. Also, clipping. Let's talk about clipping, okay? So if I could throw a poison injector, right? But if I want to, I can go ahead and also do a heavy attack. In MMOs, in Twitch games, we have this thing. It's not an animation cancellation, because animation cancellation is when I'm using an ability and weaving between its effect, right? So when I'm going ahead and I'm doing here, I'm doing the weave in between. Some of the times you won't even see it proc as I'm canceling it out. Sometimes you will. On a clip, what I'm doing is I'm using one ability or one effect to and clipping it with an ability. So I'm going to go ahead, hit this, and hit both. Now I got both to drop. Heavy attack, ability. That's a clip. That's what we call clipping in MMOs. Of course, I probably made that up as well. So whatever. So it's not an animation cancellation. Why isn't it an animation cancellation? Because you see the draw occurring. There's no canceling the draw. The only thing I'm doing is applying the ability with the draw. So I'm clipping the ability with the heavy attack, right? So same thing kind of goes in with the heavy attack in your weave. I'm going to go ahead. I have on heavy attack, there's no cancellation to it, but I can clip an ability like my daggers with it. Right? I can go ahead and then fire directly after it. It's going to have that delay though to hit. Same thing on your weave. Okay, I'm going to go ahead on my as soon as I hit the heavy attack, I'm using the ability. It's already going press. It's getting released at the same time I'm following through. All right. Pretty much said and done. I hope this works out. And also ultimates. Ultimates, I always, if I'm in organized play, I wait for the call. Drop the ultimate when the war horn blows, right? If there's no war horn, what I always want to go ahead and do, say you're in a 4-man and you haven't heard war horns, you want to go ahead and fire it on the boss, depending on, you know, if like Ballista. Ballista's my primary ultimate. So most of the time I'll just go ahead and if it's up, I use it. I don't want this to cap up to 500 as much as possible. So anytime, and now if there's a person with Warhorn, I'll ask them, is Warhorn ready? If Warhorn, they say, I got 10 seconds on Warhorn. Okay, give them 10 seconds, build up the ultimate, because as soon as I drop the ultimate, I'm going to lose it. There's none of that banked ultimate is going to stay, right? So when I go into skills, Ballista's only costing me 175. I have 500. I don't want 500. I want to drop it as fast as possible. Because when I use that, it's gone. It's depleted. It's over with. Right? It's already gone. I don't want to build up 500 unless I'm using an ultimate like Power Overload, which I can go ahead and draw from that pool. Other than that, if it's 175 and there's a Warhorn that's being blowed, use it. If there's not a Warhorn available, use it. Do not let it build up. Start keeping those ultimates going in throughout the rotation. So when the ultimate like Ballista is being fired, I'm able to still continue my rotation as its effect is being applied. So there you guys have it. Just keep practicing little things, guys, even if it's not your buff. So, you know, do something simple like, you know, that, Endless Hail, and then maybe your spam and your animation cancellation. Now you notice like sometimes my arm looks like it's stuck, so I'll have a reverse animation of cancellation. It's so weird. So you know, something simple, man. If you're seeing that weird pose, that could happen. So, but yeah, that's it. If you have any questions or comments, I will do a Magicka one tomorrow. Like I said, it's just to help, you know, people beginning with the rotation, a couple tricks. Like I said, if you have any questions, comments, post below. I hope this video is helpful to most people. I do want to thank you for watching, and once again and always, have a nice day.